Reading requires sitting alone by yourself in a quiet room, and I have friends, intelligent friends, who don't like to read because it's not just bored, there's an almost dread. It seems significant that we don't want things to be quiet ever anymore. And
Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aisha. I am filming this video from the Qatar National Library because I figured this video is perfect for the environment, like we're in the library and one of the most beautiful libraries in the world. I figured this location is best for this video because I will be sharing with you some of my unserious reading habits that I find chic. I know that this pattern of video has been going around where people share with you some of the things they find chic. I figured we might as well do something for reading habits because we all have reading habits, even though I don't think many of us recognize that they are reading habits, very specific and niche to reading. The first reading habits that I find chic is something that you would have seen me doing on this channel a lot. Well, not a lot, but you would have seen me talk about it regularly on this channel. And that is I would reading a physical or ebook with an audiobook version of the same book. This thing I discovered back in 2023, and I think I started off with Wandering Souls by Cecil Payne. That was the first book that I read in this way. So I had the ebook format of this book, and then I listened to the audiobook while I was reading it, and there was just something about the reading experience. I think this elevates reading experiences, especially when the audiobook narration is perfect, and especially when you're reading a book that is very cultural, that's very niche. So the accent of the narrator of the audiobook, they pronounce the name properly, just so long as the audiobook is done well. This is not like many Nigerian books where they'll just hire anybody to narrate the audiobook and then they'll pronounce the name horribly. It's perfect when the book you're reading is not from your culture and the audiobook is narrated well. That's my number one reading habit that I find chic. Another reading habit that I find really chic is also quite niche, but this is essentially reading with your leg raised on the wall. Hear me out. There's a context to this. Sorry. The fact that I'm staying in the library, I'm so distracted by random books that I'm seeing and they're distracting me. For example, this one, I just saw this really random cover. Anyway, let's continue. There's something about reading a book while raising up your leg and putting it on the wall. There's just something about it. I think you should try it. It's very calming to the nervous system, especially when you do it on the floor, but then you place a pillow on your lower back. I find it chic. There's just something about it. So very. And reading is calming to the nervous system. So you're reading while you're in a position that is already calming to your nervous system. Perfect. You can't tell me that this isn't chic. The third reading habit that I find extremely chic, this one I find particularly chic, and this is pausing to search for the meaning or pronunciation of a word that you don't know when you read and noting that word down. I don't think many of us realize that we don't actually know the meaning of many words that we come across, and especially as English readers, I don't know about every other type of readers, but for English readers, when you come across a word that you don't really know the full meaning, you lose out on the point of that sentence by just reading it and continue with the story. There's something that you lose out on if you don't get the full meaning of that word. I think this applies to reading in general in any language, but for me, what I have found out is that when I started pausing while I'm reading and searching up a word that I've never seen before and understanding the meaning of the word or the pronunciation of the word, has changed my reading experience in general. The con of this habit is that you need to pause and then do it. And it is easier to do this when you are reading an ebook because all you need to do is long press and then look up the meaning of the word and you can see the pronunciation, like the phonetics of the word. So this is perfect when you are reading an ebook, and it takes even longer to do this when you are reading a physical book or you're listening to an audiobook. And this is why I find this habit very chic, because you need to be intentional and you need to make that extra effort, which not many people are comfortable doing. The fourth reading habit that I find chic is not niche. There are a bunch of people that do this already, and that is reading translated books. I find it extra chic if you are not a native English speaker. Maybe you're a German speaker, you're a native German speaker, or you're a native Italian speaker, or whatever. and you read books that were originally written in English in the translated form into the language that you're a native speaker of. I find that particularly chic. I feel like once my German has gotten to a level that I like, I would be reading books that are originally published in English. I would be reading them in German, inshallah. There's this book that I want to read this year. It was originally published in Yoruba and was translated into English by Wale Soyinka. So it would be interesting for me to read that book in English, and then I'll see if I can find the Yoruba copy of that book and then read it in Yoruba again. There's just something about it. There's something about reading translated fiction. It's just chic. So yeah. So this one I do it a lot. I do this a lot on my channel. And this is going to a bookstore with a friend and talking about the books that you've read or want to read that you see on the shelf. It's very niche. I don't think people know that they do this, but it's an actual reading habit because I do it a lot. I feel like once I go to any bookstore with a friend, I always want to look at the shelf and tell them, oh, I've read this book. Oh, I've read this book. Oh, have you read this book? Oh, I have this on my TBR list. Oh, there's something about it. There's just something about it. I'm sorry. I find it very romantic. I find it very heartwarming. I find it extremely chic. Our sixth reading habit that we find extremely chic is allowing your face or body to express the emotion that you feel while you're reading, even when you're in public. I feel like many of us have a fear of being seen, especially a fear of being seen as cringe. I have this fear. I have this fear a lot. I'm filming this in public and I'll be looking around. I think majority of us have this fear of being seen as cringe. So when you're reading a book, especially when you're reading a book and people can see that you're reading a book and you allow your body, you allow your face to naturally take up the expression that they want to take up when you're reading in public, there's something chic about it. There's just something liberating about it. It's like you're telling the world like you don't care. I don't want to use a curse word, but you're telling the world that you really don't care. And that's what I find particularly chic. In fact, as I'm talking about this now, I'm getting more confidence to be filming in public. I tend to do this a lot. Sometimes when I'm doing it, because it's subconscious, I just allow myself do it. And then when I look up and see somebody looking at me, or maybe they are thinking, you're just reading a book, it's not that deep, you shouldn't have that much emotion, I always cringe. But I still continue to do it anyway. So yeah, I find this a bit very, very chic. Our confidence has gone up, so we are seeing a new angle. Another reading habit that I find really chic is when you read acknowledgements. Hear me out. See, a book is supposed to go from the first page to the last page. I know there are people that read acknowledgements and there's people that don't. They don't even read the dedication and they just go to the story, and then once they finish the story, they just close the book. No. Here, we find it very, very chic, very, very elite for you to read acknowledgements. There's a way that you get an insight into the way the author's mind is working if you read all these extra things that attach to a story. So for example, some of the books have Q&As with the author. Sometimes it's author's notes, sometimes it's acknowledgements. So when you read all of this, you get an insight into the writing style of the author, you get an insight into why they crafted the story, how they crafted the story. So there's something very chic and extremely cool about that. The eighth reading habit that I find chic, this is when you reread a sentence or a passage that's stuck out to you to allow it to sink in properly. So you know when you're reading a book and you come across like a line, maybe one of the characters said something or the author said something or just something, and you're like, oh my God, I felt that in my bone. When you reread that sentence and you allow the sentence settle into your body, into your bone, that's chic. Reading is not just an experience that you use your eyes and then your imagination or the voice in your head and you're just done. For me, reading is very immersive. It's such an immersive experience. I read with my mind, I read with my eyes, I read with my ears, I read with my blood, my bones, I read with every part of my body. Like sometimes you read a sentence and you feel it in your body. And then you pause, you don't just move on from that. You pause in that feeling and you allow yourself to sit in it. I find that very chic because I do it. But I find it very chic. This next habit is quite controversial. And it is essentially when you skip to the end of a chapter to see how that chapter ends. And then you go back to connect the dots to where you were before. I know that there's some people that don't like spoilers. For me, this is not spoiler per se, because I'm not going to the end of the book to see how the book ends. I'm going to the end of the chapter to see how that particular chapter ends. And then I will now go to where I was before and then connect the dots. And then I'll connect the dots from where I was to how I get to the end of the chapter. See, there's very niche. It's very niche. But there's just something about it. I cannot explain it. It's like you're not giving yourself spoiler. You're giving yourself an edge. You know where the story was, where you left off to go and check the back of that chapter, and then you know where that chapter is going to end. And that journey in between where you were before to the end of the chapter, you need to fill up that space. That's why I find chic. So, see, don't argue with me. This video is my own. But yeah, there's just something about it. I don't know. I can't explain, but there's something about it, and I love it. This is number 10, I think. It's about 10th reading habit. This is not niche, but I love it when people do it. I find it incredibly chic. And this is when you reread books, especially your favorite books, at different phases of your life. I think this is something that every human being should do. If you have a favorite book or you have favorite books, I think you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the different versions of yourself for you to reread those books at different phases of your life. I'm going to be biased and say that I feel like women should do this particularly, especially when your favorite books are centered around the stories of women. There's an insight that you get when you are in your teenage years, when you're in your early 20s, when you're in your mid-20s, your late 20s, your early 30s, your mid-30s, your late 30s. Different phases of your life, different phases of your life that have significant changes. There are different insights because the book remains the same, but you come to the book differently. And that is what makes this so chic, because your book is going to remain the same. And you find yourself realizing how different you've become, or how you've changed your views on certain things. And I think that is such an immersive reading experience. Like I said earlier, reading is not just picking a book and reading with your eyes and just knowing how the story goes. Reading should be an immersive experience, and this habit for me elevates that. So for my last habit that I find extremely chic, I am getting up for this portion, and that is putting a book in your bag even when you know you might not find the time to read it. This is such a book lover thing to do. Put a book in your bag. I've been outside of the house for a couple hours. I have a book I'm currently reading. I've not picked it up since I went out of the house, but the book is with me. It's on my phone. It's an ebook that I'm reading, but the book is accessible. If I was reading a physical book, it should be in my bag. If my bag is too small, which this bag is small, see how cute it is. If your bag is too small, make sure you're reading an ebook or that you're reading an audiobook, something. Just make sure you have a book with you. I think what I find extremely chic about this is that you know that you might not find the time to read the book, but you still take the book with you. Just how cool that is. You don't know when you will get 5 minutes to read a book. I find it really cute and chic when people do that. We are done. Thank you so much for watching this video up until this point. Please let me know any reading habits that you find chic, or if you agree with some of the habits that I've mentioned, if you also find them chic, or if you disagree, I want to know why you disagree. But yeah, thank you for joining me here in the Qatar National Library. It's one of the most beautiful libraries in the world. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.